Kenya's history of the 80s and 90s cannot be complete without including one Professor Arthur Obel. A study of Professor Arthur Obel may be classified as tragic comedy. And when it comes to tragic, he played along with people's lives. But before we start with him, I would tell you that Moi had a system where when political intolerance came up, he would come up with an event or a situation which will keep Kenyans busy and proud to be Kenyans for some time, so that by the time they regroup again, he has organized himself in such a way that he has come up with another story. Moi came up with a story about Nyayo vehicle. This is the time when there was political tension, and he came up with a vehicle which, to my layman's eye, believed that it looked like a Datsun 1200, but or Nissan 1200. But he brought up engineers. They produced something like that. They produced 3 vehicles, one which was Nyayo 1, Nyayo 2, Nyayo pickup. And people became proud that as Kenyans, we could produce vehicles like Japan and other countries. This kept people busy for quite some time. And again, when people started attacking him again, then he came up, picked Professor Arthur Obel, who came up with a drug called Kemron. I'll come to that, which was supposed to cure HIV/AIDS. Now, Kenyans again, for quite some time, a week in politics is too long. So for quite some time, Kenyan would walk around proud that Kenya was the first country to discover AIDS drug. And by the time they are through with that euphoria and they want to come back, Moi would have bought time. Now, Professor Arthur Obel was made the chief research officer at Kemron in 1988. He stayed in that position up to 1991. It was while he was in that position that Kemron, through his stewardship, was supposedly to have discovered the first country or the first research center to have discovered a drug that cured HIV/AIDS. And they called that drug Kemron. Of course, Kemron, the first word, if you remove O-N, it comes from the word Kemri. So Kemron was to treat HIV/AIDS. And you know the funny thing is that Kemron had been tested on 7 people. I'm not a scientist. In my O-level, I was in a technical school, and in my A-level, I did arts, which today is called humanities. But what I know is that for a drug to be certified to be effective and whatever, they do a lot of research and for a long time. My estimate would be you could have 10,000 people tested, and out of those 10,000 people tested, you could have a period of, say, 5 years testing. But this is something that they tested on 7 people and then came up. But later scientists' tests on Kemron came to discover that Kemron only reversed symptoms for a short time. Yes, they reversed symptoms for a short time. Meaning that if you have HIV/AIDS, there are those symptoms you have: sweating, getting thin, coffee. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I'm only saying there is 1, 2, 3 things that you have when then you discover you have you go for tests. Now, what Kemron did was reversing those things. You don't sweat any longer. You don't cough. You don't have night sweatings. You don't have, it reverses those things. It doesn't take away HIV from you. It doesn't take away AIDS from you. It only reverses the symptoms. And you see, there is nothing as good in medicine or in treatment as symptoms, because symptoms are the things that makes a doctor know that you are sick in this or that or that. If you have TB, the symptom is a lot of coughing. If you have malaria, a lot of sweating and a lot of shaking. Now, if the symptoms are reversed, it means that you are sick, but the symptoms which were to tell you that you are sick, this and that, they are not there. So you assume you are not sick. That is the first part of it. The second part you should note is that it did that for a short time. Now, when it comes to HIV/AIDS and HIV/AIDS, is that you are given medication for life. And if you miss the medication for quite some time, because we have people who have had calamities, we have people who there has been flooding, heavy rains, or house getting burnt, so that, or fights and somebody runs away from his or her place and goes to another place, and then he or she starts again getting medication for AIDS or HIV. There is a challenge when you have stopped taking your drugs and you start afresh. So when you took Kemron, it reversed that and you stopped taking HIV drugs. And when you restarted again, you see there was that problem. And you are told that Kemri only reversed symptoms for a short time. That is, once you have taken it, for a short time, maybe a few weeks or a few months, the HIV/AIDS symptoms wane off and you become like normal, and then you start your life again thinking that you have no. Then it reoccurs, and then you go to the NASCOP, and NASCOP now gives you a booster drug because you had stopped taking those ones. So for him to be thanked for having diffracted political tension in Kenya in the late 80s and early 90s, he was promoted from Chief Research Office of KEMRI to Chief Scientist Office of the President. That was between 1995 and 1999. We have a Swahili saying that mchovya asali hachovi mara moja. Then, around 1999, he came out with a herb, which, he's a professor in the university in medicine. But he came up with a connotation which looked like boiling. You boil some roots and then those things that you get from herbalist. I'm not saying waganga, nasema. I'm not saying you get it from wachawi. I'm talking of herbalist. When you go to traditional herbalist, they mix mwarubaini, they mix roots of this and that. They boil it and place it in your bottle. It looks like milkless tea, and you are told go and drink 1 glass and whatever. And when Professor Obel was challenged to give his medication for scientific test, scientific tests are supposed to test it to see the components, the chemical components in it. He refused. He was asked, how many people have you done on research? He refused to say. And how long have you done the research? Because you're supposed to say, like Kemron, they had tested it on 7 people. And I don't know how long they did it. You're supposed to say that I've tested my new drug on 5,000 people over a period of 2 years or something, and this is how When I started treating them, they were this way, and when I stopped treating them, they are this way. He didn't do that. He just said that, and when he was told, he just said, "Bring sick people to me, and I'll treat them." And that is when he was removed from his job as chief scientist in office of the president. A whole professor becoming a herbalist. Herbalist, I have no problem with herbalist. They have treated people, and I also, from my Vaengere clan, there was Karandini who was a very good herbalist, and I would even consult him. But when it comes to Pal Omega for Professor Arthur Obel, was just a con trick, and he lived that way. Thank you.